These dolls are so cheap.
You never really expect to become the villain in your own family's love story. But sometimes that's how life and love stories really go. Tonight, I want you to walk with me into a room full of laughter. A laughter that stings, that echoes every bad decision and quiet heartbreak you ever tucked away. My name is Grace Harmon, and this isn't just another daily storytelling episode or one of those inspirational stories you listen to with your morning coffee. No, this is one of those true stories that hurts to tell. One of those revenge stories born not out of spite, but out of love and survival. If you're listening for relationship advice or for a lesson about love and marriage, you might want to take notes. And before you get too comfortable, hit that subscribe button if you value stories that pull no punches, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now, turn off the lights, maybe put on some headphones, and let's get into this heartwarming story that begins with a betrayal and ends with a choice. I spent 3 weeks knitting 2 small dolls, my hands crooked with age, aching more with every loop and tug. Every night after dinner, sitting in the recliner, I worked by lamplight. I wasn't doing it for thanks or even pride. I did it because I loved my granddaughter, Lila. She was turning 27, and this birthday wasn't just a celebration, it was a show. Her fiancé, Adam Pierce, came from a family built on old money, the kind that flies private and spends weekends in the Hamptons. Lila wanted her party to match that. A rooftop event with a guest list that read like a who's who of Boston's elite, champagne that could crack your lips, and music so elegant it made you forget this was supposed to be about family. But I thought, maybe, just maybe, she'd see the love I sewed into every stitch. One doll wore a delicate white dress, a mirror of her designer gown. The other, a tiny navy suit, complete with a handkerchief like Adam's. But the real gift was hidden deep inside. My mother's diamond, not costume jewelry, but a stone that had survived wars, weddings, cheating and revenge, love and heartbreak. It was meant for the next woman in our family who married for love. Maybe I was a fool for hoping it would be Lila. The party was held at her Beacon Hill townhouse, a place I'd helped pay for after my husband, Charles, passed away. I was met by a doorman who didn't recognize me, who made me show my ID to enter a building whose mortgage had my fingerprints all over it. That should have been the first sign. How quickly you can go from center of the story to background character in someone else's life. Inside, there was no warmth. My son, Brian, didn't look up from his phone. His wife, Carla, air-kissed my cheek. All around me, people sparkled and buzzed, networking, not loving. I stood near the window, clutching my little gift box. It's paper from the same shop Lila once worked at back in her college days, when she still talked to me about true relationship stories, before love betrayal became just another couple drama in our family. Carla announced it was time for gifts, clinking her glass with all the pageantry of a ship's launch. Lila sat in her white dress, Grace on the outside, ice just beneath the surface. "Start with the small ones," Carla said, her eyes locking on me. My shoes squeaked as I stepped forward, gift in hand, voice trembling. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." She took the box between 2 fingers, like it might stain her. Her diamond bracelet caught the light. The room grew quiet. Phones hovered. I held my breath. She peeled back the paper, pulled out the dolls, and for a moment, there was silence. Then Lila let out a bright, clear laugh, the kind meant to wound. "Oh, this looks so cheap," she said, holding the dolls at arm's length. "Grandma, you do know we have a registry at Neiman Marcus, right?" Adam snorted from across the room. "Perfect for the donation bin." The laughter crashed down on me like a wave. Brian barked his dry laugh. Carla covered her mouth. Adam's friends, pastel shirts, loafers with no socks, snickered like boys at a bad joke. I felt the heat in my face and tried to explain, to tell them about the diamond, the love, the pain stitched into every seam. But Brian put his hand on my shoulder. "Mom, maybe it's time we talk about your free time. We've been looking at some really great retirement places near Brookline." That was the moment I realized family can be both your greatest joy and your sharpest knife. I looked around for one friendly face and found it. My grandson, Ben, standing in the corner, camera hanging at his side. He didn't laugh. He just looked at me and nodded. In that moment, I realized I wasn't completely invisible, not to everyone. I left early. I don't even remember saying goodbye. That night, back in my empty Boston apartment, I stared at my computer, the blue light turning my face into a ghost. An email pinged, plans for Lila's wedding, renovation blueprints for my lake house, the house Charles and I built over 40 years of struggle and love. We've already sent the invitations. The designer starts next month. The old furniture will need to go. The old furniture. Was that supposed to be me? I looked at the keys to that house and felt something harden inside, like a thread pulled tight and finally snipped. My phone buzzed. Brian, again. Mom, scheduled a tour for the retirement community just to look. Brookline's lovely this time of year. Just to look like I was shopping for curtains and not the last chapter of my own life. I stared out at the city's arrogant skyline and realized I was being written out of my own story. The next morning, I decided it was time for a new script. One with me at the center, not just the bystander. Because this was more than a family misunderstanding. This was the start of one of those cheating and revenge, life and love stories where the woman who gets underestimated finally writes her own ending.
When people talk about life lessons, they rarely mention the day you realize your family is willing to carve you out of your own story. That day, after Brian's text about the retirement home, I sat by my window, hands shaking, staring at the keys to the lake house. 40 years of real-life stories lived inside those walls, love and marriage, heartbreak, forgiveness, daily storytelling that you don't share on social media because it's too raw, too real. That house held every secret of our relationship stories. It was where Charles and I scattered his ashes in the water, where we danced in the kitchen, where Lila learned to swim and Ben built sandcastles and told me about the first girl who broke his heart. I built that place out of love, and now it was just another asset to be gutted for a Pinterest wedding. I made up my mind to go see it. The drive to the lake house took longer than usual. Every ache in my hands, every twist in my back, felt like a reminder of what time steals from you. But pain was easier to bear than the cold reality of family betrayal. When I pulled into the driveway, my heart dropped. A sleek black SUV was already parked outside, the kind that cost more than I'd made in a year when I first married Charles. I opened the front door and stepped into the familiar scent of cedar and lake water. Voices echoed from the kitchen. "We'll knock down the wall here." "Open concept is everything," a woman's voice chirped, nasal and brisk. "Mrs. Harmon won't mind, she's barely here." I stepped through the door, and there they were, Lila, Carla, and some stranger with a tablet. My own family, planning my erasure while I was still alive. "Grandma, what a surprise," Lila sang, flashing her polished pageant smile. Carla barely looked up. "Grace, darling, we're just making some small updates for the wedding. Nothing you need to worry about." I looked at the floor plan spread across the counter. Taking down a load-bearing wall isn't small. The designer didn't bother glancing at me. It's just modernization. The bones are wonderful, but the look is dated. We want white everything. Very Instagram. I drifted to the mantel, and my heart dropped. The photograph of Charles and me, our 40th anniversary, gone. In its place, a cardboard mood board labeled Lakeside Chic. "Where's my photo?" I asked. Carla waved her hand. "Oh, we packed up the personal stuff for safekeeping." That night, after they left, I wandered the house with a flashlight, breathing in decades of memory. In the garage, 3 boxes labeled Grace's things, inside, the photograph, Charles's first edition books, our anniversary scrapbook, and the dolls I'd made for Lila, carelessly tossed, still stitched shut, diamond likely still hidden inside. My phone rang. Brian, again, voice smooth, rehearsed. "Mom, about that retirement community, can we just plan ahead a little? Brookline is nice, and it would be easier for everyone." Then came the kicker. Since the house will mostly be used for family events, Carla and I were thinking about putting it in a trust. For tax reasons. You'd still have access. As if I needed permission to enter the home I built. As if my whole story could be reduced to a line in an accountant's ledger. That night, I barely slept. My mind replayed every relationship story I'd ever lived, the cheating stories you never tell, the couple drama that never gets resolved, the quiet cheating and revenge that happens when love turns into power games. In the morning, I decided to take back control. I booked an appointment with Dr. Singh, my GP. He checked my blood pressure, frowned. "Family stress can kill," he said. "You're not alone, Mrs. Harmon. I see it all the time. People like you, who give and give, end up being taken for granted, then pushed aside." I wanted to laugh, but it hurt too much. I met my oldest friend, Joni, for coffee. She never remarried after her husband died. "Men are optional, like dessert," she always said. When I told her about the dolls, the trust, the retirement home, she squeezed my hand. "You give and give, Grace, but what are you getting back?" I couldn't answer. "They're using your love against you. That's not family. That's survival instinct turned selfish." For the first time in my life, I saw it clearly. I was being manipulated, not cherished. That night, Ben called. "Grandma, you left the party so fast. Are you okay?" His voice was soft, careful. He was the only one who seemed to care how I was feeling, not what I could give. "I'm fine," I lied. "Dad's talking about renovations like you don't exist. He's leaving folders out, financial statements, a second mortgage. I think they're counting on your house to bail them out." My hand shook as I logged into my online banking. 3 failed login attempts in the last 48 hours. Suddenly, it all clicked. This wasn't about modernizing, about caring for me. It was about desperation, greed, a quiet betrayal dressed up as family concern. I didn't sleep. I watched the sunrise and let the anger build into something sharper. Every moment from the last few weeks, Lila's cruel laugh, Carla's icy calm, Brian's lawyerly tone, snapped into focus. I knew what I had to do. I called Helen Kim, an estate attorney Charles and I had trusted years before. "Helen, I need your help. My family is planning my life without me. I need to protect myself." She told me to come in, bring every document I could find, and not to tell a soul. At her office, Helen combed through everything, the brownstone, the lake house, the accounts. "You've done well, Grace. Everything's in your name. Your husband was wise." She smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. It always starts with love and ends with extraction. I told her about the wedding, how they were planning it at the lake house without my approval, how I'd never signed a thing. "It's your house," Helen said. "You can say no. Or you can take quiet action. Just make sure it's final." That afternoon, I went to the bank. New passwords, new account access, new alerts. I left nothing to chance. When I got home, an email from Lila was waiting. "Finalizing flower arrangements, Grandma. They want $18,000 up front. Could you help with the deposit?" Next to it, a new retirement brochure from Carla, more affordable. Closer to Ben. I stared at those emails, my anger burning out the last of my hesitation. I texted Ben. "Thank you for being honest. I'm going to fix this. For me, and for you." He replied with a heart emoji, and I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as alone as I felt. That night, I wrote in my journal for the first time in years, "It's not over. My story isn't over." Because sometimes, the most powerful revenge stories don't end with a bang, but with a quiet decision to stop letting others narrate your life.
In the days that followed, I moved in secret. If you've ever heard those cheating and revenge stories where the person everyone underestimates quietly takes the lead, you'll understand the strange sense of freedom that comes with having nothing left to lose. I kept my steps soft and my words few, because this wasn't just daily storytelling anymore, it was the slow burn of a real-life story, the kind that shifts the ground under your feet and forces you to learn new life lessons when you least expect it. Helen worked quickly. "We'll protect every asset, Grace," she assured me. "You'll set the terms now, before anyone else gets a say." It was empowering to realize I still had the ability to direct my own fate. Sometimes, revenge stories aren't about getting even, they're about taking back the script. I changed my online banking, moved accounts, locked down the brownstone and the lake house, and set up every security alert possible. My hands shook with every step, but there was relief in the fear, proof I was alive, still fighting for my own story. Ben checked in nearly every day. He sent texts, sometimes just a photo of the lake, sometimes a memory from when he was little, sometimes just thinking of you. His kindness cut through the couple drama like a beam of light. I clung to those small, heartwarming stories, proof that true relationship stories don't always fade with time. Then one morning, Helen called. "There's a buyer," she said. "Discreet, all cash, no inspection. They can close in 2 weeks if you want." My heart thundered. I walked through the lake house one last time, touching each memory with trembling fingers. Every photo, every scrap of Charles's handwriting, every dish and faded napkin, packed, labeled, or donated. The dolls, still hidden in a box, the diamonds still sewn inside. My heart squeezed as I realized how many gifts I'd tucked away for a family that no longer saw me as anything more than a resource. As the sun set on that final day, I locked the door and stood on the porch, breathing in the last scent of cedar and water. "Thank you," I whispered, not to the house but to the woman I had once been here, wife, mother, grandmother, friend. That woman had given everything, and now she was learning to take a little back. Ben came over for dinner. I made his favorite, roast chicken and apple crisp, a taste of childhood. We ate in peace, without talk of money or property, just story time, just laughter. After dessert, he looked at me, his eyes earnest. "You're really doing it, Grandma. Selling the house, starting over." I nodded, the truth heavy but clean. Sometimes love means letting go, Ben. Not just of places, but of old hurts and habits. Sometimes, love means protecting yourself before you're gone. He reached across the table, squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you. I wish Mom and Dad could see you the way I do." I smiled, sadness and pride tangled together. "They may never, but that's their story, not mine." When he left, I stood at the window watching his taillights fade, feeling a strange sense of hope. The next morning, Helen called again. "The buyers are increasing their offer by $40,000 if you close in 10 days. I barely hesitated before saying yes. 10 days. That was all the time I needed to change the entire story narration. I didn't tell anyone except Ben. I wanted a few days to be at peace with my decision before the storm hit. In those quiet days, I started making plans for my own future, a future with less weight, fewer burdens, maybe even some joy. The lake house sold 3 days ahead of schedule. I sat in my apartment, staring at the confirmation email, letting the finality wash over me. 40 years, gone with a few clicks. Instead of regret, I felt light. Not free, exactly, but unburdened. I called Ben to tell him the news. "You did it, Grandma. They're going to be mad, you know." I laughed, a full, rich laugh that surprised us both. "Let them be. This is one of those cheating and revenge stories they'll never see coming. And I'm not sorry for it." The next day, the first call came from Brian. "Mom, I heard from the bank. The house is sold. Why didn't you tell us?" His voice was raw, confused, a little wounded. I let the silence linger, then answered softly, "I didn't tell you because I didn't need your permission. This is my life. My story." He sputtered, trying to regain control. "We had plans, Mom. Lila's wedding, the family." I cut him off. "You had plans for my life without asking. That ends now." He hung up angry, and I felt something lift off my chest. One by one, the calls came, Carla, then Lila, voices raised, questions thrown, blame placed. I listened, but I didn't explain. For once, my voice was steady. No more, I told them. I'm done being the quiet background character in my own life. Ben showed up later that evening, bringing a bouquet of wildflowers and a peace offering, a photo of the lake, taken at sunset, the water blazing gold. This is how I want to remember it, he said. We sat together in the growing dark, not needing words. Sometimes, true stories aren't about happy endings, but about hard-won beginnings. That night, as I sat by my window, I realized my greatest revenge wasn't about money or property. It was about reclaiming my own voice, and finally letting it ring.
The day after the sale closed, the world felt both quieter and sharper. My phone was strangely still. For the first time in years, I woke to nothing but sunlight on my face and the gentle creak of my apartment settling around me. No demands, no emergencies, no family drama pulsing through text threads or emails. It was a peace I hadn't known since Charles died, and it felt both foreign and right. When people talk about life and love stories, they rarely mention that sometimes the most heartwarming stories come after the heartbreak, when you finally choose yourself. Later that morning, Brian showed up at my door unannounced, wearing the look of a man who hasn't slept and doesn't know if he's the hero or the villain of his own cheating and revenge story. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice hollow. I let him, but I didn't offer coffee. He paced my living room, wringing his hands, the man who once promised me the world, now desperate for a lifeline. "You really sold it, Mom?" Without even talking to us. I stood my ground. Yes. Because for years I did nothing but talk. No one listened. He dropped onto the sofa, looking lost. "Lila's wedding is ruined. The invitations are sent. The money spent. What are we supposed to do?" There it was, the assumption that my life, my love, my hard work were resources to be mined, not gifts to be cherished. The kind of love betrayal you only see clearly in hindsight, when all the couple drama and relationship stories come into focus as one long, sad lesson. He finally looked up, eyes red. "Why, Mom? Why now?" I sat across from him, letting the silence thicken. Because it took me this long to realize that family doesn't mean sacrificing every piece of yourself. You didn't ask, Brian. You assumed. You maneuvered. If you'd needed help, you could have just told me the truth. But you plotted, and you planned, and you tried to take my power away. That's not love. That's manipulation. His shoulders slumped, the bravado gone. "Would you have helped us if I'd just asked?" I softened, because even in cheating stories, there's a twist of compassion. "Maybe. But we'll never know now. I have to protect what I have left." He nodded, a small, broken sound. "You're stronger than I ever thought." "I'm sorry." For the first time in years, I believed him. He left quietly. The next visitor was Lila. She didn't knock, she texted, "I'm downstairs. Can I come up?" I almost didn't answer, but some lessons require a little faith. She stepped inside, looking nothing like the picture-perfect bride. Her hair was a mess, her face bare, and her eyes rimmed in red. She sank onto my kitchen stool and whispered, "Adam's family pulled out. The wedding's off." I lost everything. I poured her tea and waited. She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. "I'm sorry, Grandma. For the dolls. For treating you like you were nothing. Her voice cracked. I wanted so badly for my life to look perfect, I forgot how to actually live it." Her apology was raw, not the rehearsed kind. "You threw away something more valuable than you knew," I told her, voice gentle but steady. "And not just the diamond. You threw away love, time, intention." Tears ran down her face, and I let her cry. "I don't even know if it's too late to fix things," she said. "It's never too late to start over," I replied. "But you have to do it for the right reasons." She nodded, then surprised me. "Can I help you pack?" For the first time in months, I let myself hope. Packing wasn't about boxes or bubble wrap. It was about sorting through what was worth carrying into the next chapter. In the weeks that followed, Lila kept coming. Sometimes she'd stay for an hour, folding sweaters in silence. Sometimes we'd share stories about Charles or laugh about her childhood. Slowly, the couple drama faded into real, heartwarming stories. She found an old photo of us, her on my lap at the lake house, both of us beaming. "You used to make me lavender lemonade," she whispered. "I remember," I smiled. "You called it purple juice." Sometimes, a true relationship story is as simple as two people willing to try again. Meanwhile, Ben's gallery show opened in a little downtown space. I wore my favorite shawl and a smile that felt new. His black and white photos, portraits of hands, faces, and city corners, told the kind of story narration you rarely hear on audio stories. Honest, vulnerable, full of quiet strength. One photo stopped me. A shot of me, not posed, just sipping tea, my face half in shadow, titled Matriarch at Rest. I nearly cried. When I thanked him, he just said, "You taught me what matters." Even Brian came to the gallery, quieter than usual, humbled. "You built something real with him," he admitted, nodding at Ben. "I didn't build it. I just stopped closing the door." For the first time in years, our family dinner table felt like a place of healing, not a battlefield. As the leaves turned gold and the city settled into fall, I felt something shift. My days became quieter but richer, morning walks, new friends, even an invitation to speak at Lila's University about legacy and the meaning of value. Life lessons, relationship advice, true stories. Suddenly, I was living the inspirational stories I used to envy. One day, Ben gave me a photo of the lake house at sunset, golden light on the water. "This is for your new place," he said. I smiled.
Thank you, Ben.
I'm not taking the past with me, just the light. Sometimes, that's all you need to begin again. And so I moved forward. Not angry, not bitter, just awake, and finally, truly alive in my own story. Moving day arrived on a crisp, golden morning, and for the first time in a long while, I felt something like excitement thrumming in my chest. I watched as movers loaded boxes and wrapped up the few pieces of furniture I truly loved. I kept only what mattered: books, photographs, a few hand-knitted blankets, and, tucked safely at the bottom of a small jewelry case, the dolls and the diamond. Everything else I let go: a lifetime of gifts, trinkets, even the old rocking chair where I'd nursed my babies and later grieved alone after Charles died. I realized then how much of life and love stories are really about letting go, about making room for what might come next. The new condo was modern, sunlit, and above all, mine. Not inherited, not negotiated, not something to be shared as a bargaining chip in someone else's relationship story. That first night, I sat by the window, tea steaming in my hands, and watched the city shimmer in the twilight. I felt the power of true stories, how a simple act of courage could rewrite the narrative of a family or a woman's entire life. Days fell into a peaceful rhythm. Each morning, I walked along the river, breathing in the freedom. I joined a local book club, attended lectures, and even started writing again, little memories, snippets of audio stories from a life that had been both ordinary and extraordinary. Ben visited often, always bringing stories from his photography work, sometimes just needing a hug or advice. Lila texted too, short messages at first, but over time longer, more honest ones. She told me she was back in school, studying art history, working at a local gallery, and slowly, the brittle shell she'd built around herself began to soften. One rainy afternoon, she arrived with a cardboard box and a shy smile. "I made you something," she said, her hands trembling. Inside were 6 knitted dolls, each one awkward and imperfect, but full of effort. One looked like me, glasses and cardigan and all. Another had Adam's wild hair and a lopsided tie. "My therapist said it might help to make something with my hands," she explained, blushing. I pulled the grandma doll out, set it on the table, and laughed, real and loud. "It's hideous, but it's perfect," I told her, and she grinned. "I missed you," she whispered. I squeezed her hand. "Then don't disappear again." We talked for hours, not about blame or money, but about life and love, betrayal and forgiveness, all those emotional stories that make up a real family. She told me about letting go of perfection, about how losing Adam and the wedding forced her to finally see herself. I thought if I could make things look perfect, I'd feel perfect inside. But I was just scared, she admitted, tears in her eyes. Me too, I said, for a long time. As autumn settled in, so did a new piece. My calendar filled with gallery openings, small dinners, Sunday calls with Joni, even a lunch with Carla, who'd started therapy herself and, for the first time, apologized not with excuses, but with tears. I wanted to be the perfect wife and mother, she said. But somewhere along the way, I forgot how to just be decent. I forgave her, not for her sake, but for mine. The best moments, though, were still with Ben. His gallery show, titled Legacy in Light, drew a small but devoted crowd. His photos hung beside portraits of teachers, gardeners, and quiet rebels, people whose faces told relationship stories deeper than words. My own portrait hung quietly in a corner. Me, hands folded, lips mid-smile, the Charles River bright behind me, one knitted doll in my lap. People paused, some asking who I was. That's my grandmother, Ben said simply, pride in his voice. Family dinners changed, too. Not as big or as loud, but more honest. Lila brought wine and bakery bread. Ben snapped photos between courses. Brian, humbled and changed, brought a bouquet of wild chrysanthemums, red and gold, a little wild, a little unpredictable. As we ate, he looked at us all and said, I used to think family was about never letting go. Now I think it's about learning when to hold on and when to let go. I'm sorry for every time I got it wrong. Lila squeezed his hand. I forgive you, Dad. I joined her.
So do I.
Not because you asked, but because I need to. Ben wiped at his eyes, and I realized that after all the couple drama, the cheating stories, and the hard lessons, this daily storytelling, this circle of flawed but forgiving people, was my truest revenge and my happiest ending yet. But maybe it's not an ending. Maybe it's just a beginning. It's funny how the end of one story can become the quiet beginning of another. In the months after my move, my new life unfolded gently, with little fanfare but deep, true satisfaction. My neighborhood soon felt like home. The barista at the corner cafe knew how I liked my coffee extra hot. My upstairs neighbor, a widow named Iris, showed up one night with homemade lasagna and stories about her own cheating and revenge days, stories that made us both laugh and cry, the kind of emotional stories you never hear on the news, but that shape who we become. I started volunteering at a local art center, helping kids discover painting and collage. Some days I would catch glimpses of my own younger self in those children, their courage, their wild hope, their belief that every mistake can turn into a masterpiece. That's the secret of all life and love stories. Every flaw, every loss, every heartbreak is just part of the tapestry, even when it doesn't feel beautiful at first. As autumn deepened, Lila invited me to speak at her university's Generations in Art event. She introduced me, voice trembling but proud. My grandmother taught me that value isn't always visible and love isn't always loud. Sometimes the greatest act of love is just refusing to disappear. I stood before a small crowd, sharing the story of the dolls, the diamond, the insult, and how I learned to take back my voice. I told them, don't confuse being needed with being valued. Protect your boundaries. Sometimes, the hardest part of a true relationship story is realizing you're allowed to put yourself first. Afterward, students lined up to ask about forgiveness, boundaries, and how to survive family betrayals. I realized how many of them carried their own couple drama, their own scars from love betrayal, their own family stories quietly unraveling at home. I gave them what advice I could, but mostly I listened. Sometimes, the greatest revenge stories are simply about surviving with your heart intact and your dignity in place. One afternoon, Ben called, excitement in his voice. Grandma, the gallery wants to extend my show. 3 more prints sold. His gratitude was pure, but he said something I'll never forget. None of this would have happened if you hadn't stood up for yourself. You taught me that loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself for them. It hit me then, in a way no story narration or advice column could ever capture. Reclaiming my power wasn't just for me, it was a legacy for everyone watching, even if they never said a word. Around Thanksgiving, we held a small gathering in my new condo. Lila brought wine, Ben made his famous roasted carrots, and Brian surprised us all by arriving early, a little less weighed down, carrying a cake and a card that simply read, "Thank you for choosing yourself." We ate, we laughed, and for the first time in years, I felt like we were a family again. Not a perfect one, but a real one, flawed, forgiving, honest. After everyone left, I sat in the glow of the city lights, tea in hand, the knitted dolls and old photographs around me. My heart was soft, open. I realized that while cheating stories and revenge stories make for good drama, the most inspirational stories are about courage, not payback. About learning that your story is still worth telling, even when the world tries to write you out. I wrote a letter to my younger self that night. Dear Grace, love doesn't mean letting yourself be used. It means speaking up, saying no, trusting that the right people will honor your truth. Your worth is not measured by your sacrifices, but by your refusal to disappear. With love, the woman you finally became. Now, when I walk along the river, I pass new faces and wave at old friends, knowing that my story isn't over. It's just entering a new chapter when I get to write on my own terms. The truest legacy isn't a house, a diamond, or a bank account. It's the courage to live your life out loud, to reclaim your own voice, to give your love without apology or regret. So, if you're listening to this audio story tonight, wondering if your story matters, know that it does. Know that you are not invisible, not disposable, and never too late to start again. Sleep well tonight. You've earned it,